Hi, my name is Peter Carr and welcome to part 2 of my talk about the war with machines. Today I'm going to talk about career options in 15 years' time. The reason for that is a lot of people have said to me, well, if most of the jobs are gone in 15 years, can you tell me which jobs won't be gone and which jobs will be gone so that I can make some choices about my career? So that's a good question and one I'm going to cover now. So there's good news and there's bad news. Obviously, the first bit of bad news, as I touched upon last time, is that 75% of jobs will be gone in 15 years' time. Now, I'm not going to talk about which jobs exactly are gone and which jobs are here. Instead, if you look at the website, there's a link below. There's a list of hundreds of jobs that will be gone in 15 years, and if your career choice is on that list, you might want to think about whether or not that's a good option for you in the future. If you're about to start uni, you might want to refer to that. If you've just finished uni, you've still got time to change your career focus, or at any other stage in your career. If you're worried about where you might be in 15 years' time, have a look at that list and think about the jobs that will be there. Look, there's a bit of good news, and if you think about it, it's obvious that up to 25% of jobs will still exist in 15 years' time, and some people don't believe that, but I'm pretty sure that they will. It will take longer, much longer, for all the jobs to go, for lots of reasons. So once again, I'm not going to go through that list. Have a look at the website. The link is below, and you can see on the website which jobs are likely to still be here in 15 years' time. Okay, so I'm talking about the bad news first. Wages are going to drop dramatically. Why do I say that? Well, if 75% of people don't have a job, then there'll be a lot of competition for every job that is there. So employers will gradually, over time, be reducing the salaries offered for those jobs to the point where they'll probably be not much more than minimum wage for most jobs. So even if you have a job in 15 years, you'll probably be earning significantly less doing that job than you would for doing that job today. Another bad news, crime, at least in the cities, is going to be pretty bad, because historically, whenever we've had very high levels of unemployment, it's had an inevitable increase in crime as people try and feed their families. Now, the good news section. So there's quite a lot of good news, and these are things that I think would be inevitable benefits of the machines taking all the jobs and so on. The first one is that, lifestyle will be much better, because machines will be doing everything and they won't be making mistakes. They'll be doing things much more effectively. They'll be working in factories, they'll be driving cars, manufactured products will become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. You won't have to drive your car home, you can go out and have a drink without worrying about driving your car home. So there'll be lots of benefits to the new technology, which we shouldn't underestimate. One of the biggest benefits, I think, is going to be the rebirth of communities. So, in the last talk I talked about big cities being created by the changes of machines taking jobs, and this last stage of this machine war is going to have the opposite effect, because the jobs that will go first will be the ones in the cities. That's where it makes sense for governments and businesses to spend the money rolling out all this new technology. So the cities will be the place where all the jobs mostly will be gone. So people will leave the cities in search of jobs in small remote communities, because those communities will be the last ones where it will just make economic sense to roll out that technology. So those communities will flourish. There'll be an influx of people into those communities, and governments will actually have to spend more to support people going into those communities. So there'll be a huge rebirth of community living, which a lot of people probably think is a really nice way to live, and potentially it is. Even the jobs that probably continue to be done in cities will probably be done remotely by people from small communities. Now, another big benefit is that house prices will become much more affordable. And it's a simple mathematical equation if you think about it. You know, house prices right now are about 10 times the true value. And by true value, I mean what does it cost to build one in most developed economies. And why are they so high? Well, you know, 50 years ago we had one person working and one person staying at home looking after the kids, and everybody could afford a house. But now that's changed. Why did it change? Well, we went to having two people working in a couple. What was the result of that? We had twice as much money, but it just meant houses prices doubled. We didn't have any more money to spend. We became more productive, much more productive, made much more money, but we didn't have any more money to spend because the more money we earned, it just pushed house prices higher and higher and higher. So, you know, the opposite simple mathematics will occur. As we reach a point where 75% of people are unemployed, as the people who are working are earning less, people won't be able to spend as much on house prices. House prices are going to plummet 75%. It'll be much more affordable. People will be able to afford houses again as they did in the past, which will be great. Another benefit is that it will probably be a much more eco-friendly world. Cities are very polluting. Living in cities, everything has to be shipped in by ships, trucks, planes, into the middle of these big cities, whereas small local communities will probably source their food from local farmers, their water supplies locally, and they'll probably get their electricity from solar or wind or some local accessible electricity source, so they won't need to be creating anywhere near as much pollution as we're currently creating living in cities. So we'll probably have a much more eco-friendly world. Another big benefit is that you may not need to work, or you may not need to work as much. If you think about it, if the major expense that people spend most of their money on, their house, if that's 75% cheaper, then you might not have to have two full-time people working in a couple to afford that. You might not even have to have one full-time job. Maybe one part-time job between a couple will be enough to pay for the mortgage or to pay for the rent. Now, what's the result of that? Well, you know, if you're prepared to go against your socialisation that's told you that we all have to have full-time jobs, if you're prepared to live with a situation where you have one part-time job in a couple, you might have a much better work-life balance. So, you know, maybe you don't need to work or work as much. So the big benefit in terms of career is that there'll still be a lot of work in one area. And that area is entrepreneurship. So why do I feel that there'll be a lot of work for entrepreneurs? Quite simply because they can't stop you being an entrepreneur. Whereas they can stop you having a job. Having a job is out of your control. Having a job is dependent upon the government's economics policies. It's dependent upon your business's business strategies. It's dependent upon whether your boss likes you or not. It's dependent upon whether you did the right degree at university. It's dependent upon what you've done in your life up until that time. These are mostly things you can't change, you don't have any control over. So that job can just be taken away from you very easily. Whereas being an entrepreneur can't be taken away from you. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it can't stop you. So what do I mean about when I say being an entrepreneur? I mean having a small business. Maybe having a small business in the field that you were working in before you lost your job. Maybe having a small business in a field you've always wanted to be in. Maybe having a small business doing something really interesting you've always wanted to do. There'll be a lot of opportunities for small businesses in local communities and for small businesses to manage the robots and the AI that are doing the work. So there'll be a lot of work for entrepreneurs in the future, and that's where most of the work will be. So that's good news. Now just one other thing I'll talk about briefly in terms of what the world will be like in 15 years from now is that it'll be the end of the mega city. So my last talk I talked about people coming to the cities for work and that creating cities, and the opposite's going to happen now at this last phase of this machine war. Most of the jobs in the cities will be gone. Most of the work in the cities will be done by robots, done by AI, done by technology infrastructure. There won't be jobs for people in the cities. They'll leave the cities. The cities will become deserted. Nobody will be living in these massive apartment blocks that we built in the cities. So what will happen to them? They'll become run down, derelict, and pretty much resemble the dystopian future that you see in films like Blade Runner. So that'll be the end of the cities. Even the jobs that remain in the cities will probably be done remotely by people over the internet or using virtual reality or some such tech. So that's an important thing to consider when you're thinking about your career 15 years from now. Okay, so that's pretty much covered off the career landscape in 15 years' time. In my next talk, I'm going to talk about solutions. By solutions, what I mean is policy options that we can look at as ways to create a complete win-win for humanity out of this technology war and the fact that the machines will be taking the jobs away. So see you next time.